Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Cold Sky. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will continue reading the Naruto Alternative Universe fic by MisatosPenpen and PhoenixInnocence called Scars. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. Note, this fic is rated explicit. On with the show. Scars by MisatosPenpen and PhoenixInnocence. Chapter 5. Wednesday, November 11th. Naruto sat at his desk the next morning, wondering what he got himself into for the 100th time. If Kakashi found out he was collaborating with Itachi Uchiha, adding to that he knew Sasuke was alive, had even heard his voice in the background, things did not look good for him. He hadn't slept well after the call from Itachi last night, but he hadn't heard a whisper about anyone seeing Itachi or Sasuke. Sakura intruded on his worried thoughts, resuming her vacated seat with a steaming cup in hand. Naruto tapped the folder on his desk lightly, lost in thought. Deciding, he pushed the file over to Sakura.
I think we should investigate this.
Sakura set her cup down and opened the file, scanning the first page quickly. She frowned. Her head fell to the side in thought. You think he could have gotten to someone like Sasuke? I mean, Sasuke isn't a pushover, and if I remember correctly, this person is on the girlish side.
It only takes one lucky blow, Sakura.
Sakura shuddered at the unpleasant thought. Even though she thought Sasuke was dead, it didn't seem plausible that even a lucky blow could fell him. She didn't appear convinced, but replied anyway. I can send it on to Shikamaru and Tewari for Tsunade's approval.
Please?
Naruto replied sarcastically.
Hey now,
Sakura whined, offended.
I'm just not convinced. I want to find Sasuke as soon as possible, and I won't overlook someone just because they could pass themselves off as a female. Okay.
Sakura held her hands up.
I get it.
I know you're worried about him, considering... Sakura's voice trailed off as Nechi approached. She pushed away from the small desk they were using and replied,
I'll hand this over to Shika then.
Nechi watched her leave from the corner of his eye. You know, I'm starting to think she doesn't like me, he said. Naruto smiled behind his hand and snorted.
She's just worried about Sasuke and blames you because you're his partner. Forgive her, she'll cool off once she's found.
So, you think you have a lead?
Just someone Sasuke had a run-in with. Do you remember, Hakuyuki?
Yes, but don't you think he's a bit...
girly?
Naruto supplied.
Why does everyone think that someone like him couldn't get the better of Sasuke? Like I told Sakura, all you need is a lucky hit.
That'd have to be damn lucky.
Sasuke was able to take Kakashi-sensei down with one hit.
Yeah, that was the epitome of a lucky hit, Neji said sarcastically, believing in his partner's prowess. Naruto frowned and leaned his head on his hand. He muttered to himself bitterly.
He's still lucky.
Neji didn't seem to hear him in the quiet room. His head was bent over one of the case files, his fingers lifting up page after page as he speed read. Naruto watched him in silence, but not really seeing Nechi, his mind wandering to Sasuke and one of the last times they spent together. Sasuke had been insatiable and more vigorous than he normally was. Not that Naruto was complaining. He just liked it when Sasuke was slower, showering him with more attention. Actually, that part was lacking recently. It wasn't that he felt like he was just a fuck for Sasuke, but Sasuke wasn't as affectionate as he used to be. Sasuke had started shying away from kissing and never initiated them anymore. He didn't like to stay in bed with him for long afterward either. Maybe the writing was on the wall. Sasuke was pulling away. Naruto sighed and pushed away from his perch, deciding it was time to track down Konohamaru. It was the least he could do to help Sasuke and Itachi. Finding the young agent wasn't hard. Naruto knew he could be found at his desk on the second floor, with his partner Moegi. He came up behind Konohamaru and ruffled his hair and smiling wide.
How's it going, kid?
Naruto! Konohamaru squealed, before coughing and clearing his face of his wide grin. Naruto laughed at his attempt to act professional and ruffled his hair again.
You don't have to pretend around me.
Konohamaru frowned. I'm not trying to pretend. I want you to take me seriously.
And I do.
Naruto laughed again, pulling over a spare chair and swinging it around, straddling it. His chin found purchase, resting on the back of the chair.
Tell me, how's it going? Having any big cases lately?
None, Konohamaru sighed. Naruto's lips quivered, wanting to smile again. Konohamaru sounded so dejected. The rookie blues was a feeling he knew all too well. What about you, boss? Do you have any big cases right now? Naruto felt butterflies rise up in his stomach.
Just one at the moment.
Really? What's it about? Does it have anything to do with drug lords or the Suna Mafia?
No,
Naruto said sadly, thinking about Sasuke.
It's a missing persons case. Level 1 top priority.
It's that agent, isn't it? Konohamaru muttered, awestruck. No one will say who it is. Sounds pretty big. And you working on it?
I'm not alone, and actually, Kakashi-sensei is leading the investigation. It's Sasuke.
Sasuke? You mean that stiff friend of yours? He always scares me. Naruto gave a playfully annoyed look.
Yeah, I'm worried, but he's a badass. I don't think anyone could take him down easily. I just get to sit in a room full of Sasuke's cases and see how much better he is at his job than I am.
Naruto laughed, trying to take the sting out of his words, lest Konohamaru believe him to be that shallow. In reality, he just wanted Sasuke's respect. You must admire him to want to be as good as him, Moege said, smiling when Naruto turned to her. Naruto was put off by her perceptiveness.
I just want him to see me as his equal, but I'm not there yet. I'll just have to work twice as hard as him.
You can do it, boss! Konohamaru cheered.
How can I fail when I have you for a cheering squad?
Naruto laughed. He felt at ease for the first time since Sasuke disappeared, and he would be lying if he said he didn't need this. Konohamaru, Udon said, striding up to them with a tissue at his ever-draining nose. The poor boy suffered from several seasonal allergies, which landed him a desk job at the FBI. Ebisu would like that report on his desk within the hour. He also says to stop fraternizing with coworkers. You have a job to perform. Konohamaru grumbled and woke his computer monitor, setting about typing up his report. Naruto seized his chance.
What are you working on?
Nothing as important as your level 1, Konohamaru said, sighing wistfully. It was every new recruit's dream to work a level 1. Naruto couldn't help thinking that Sasuke beat him to that honor by a month, but Naruto's came at a price. Sasuke was the one missing. It was a simple stakeout. They were supposed to be tailing a pimp that was using underage females for prostitution. We got him on tape and Ebisu's team swooped in for the arrest, Moege answered, handing Udon her report, signed and dated.
I remember being on stakeouts, though they weren't much fun with Sakura around.
Naruto released another laugh, stood and ruffled Konohamaru's hair one more time before leaving, but not before he threw over his shoulder.
Stay safe, you two.
Outside, in the corridor, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief. Konohamaru hadn't seen Sasuke or Itachi. There was no way the young agent wouldn't have told Naruto all about it, especially after Naruto told him the Uchiha was the case he was working. Pulling his phone from his pocket, Naruto sent a quick text.
All clear. You and Sasuke not recognized. You're welcome.
Itachi responded quickly, Naruto's phone vibrating in his hand. Thank you. Itachi made them all breakfast in the morning as a thanks to Kisame for letting them crash at his house. Deidara was too disgruntled to do it and Sasuke had a headache, but he woke up easily enough that they weren't worried about his concussion anymore. So what kind of trouble are you in this time, Tachi? Kisame asked as he shoveled eggs and pancakes into his mouth. And is it doppelganger who I think he is? This is my brother Sasuke. He believes I'm innocent now too. You're the only one who thinks I'm guilty. Man, the FBI and the general public. Anyway, we were investigating and twice now we've been targeted by hitmen. But the reason we came to you was that we thought we were seen by an FBI agent. I don't think we were. When do you think the coast will be clear, Sasuke? I checked the FBI's website on Kisame's computer. Sorry, but I had to clear the cookies to wipe out my login information. We are indebted to you, but I'm not giving you access to the bureau. There have been no sightings reported of either of us. We can head back anytime. Now! Deidara blurted. Sasuke's eyes narrowed at Deidara. Under cover of darkness would be best. I think 3 in the morning. We keep under the speed limit and drive carefully and we should get back without anyone noticing. When Kisame was done with his breakfast, he stood and gave Itachi a kiss on the cheek like Itachi was his wife, making Deidara growl. Then Kisame went to work. Despite how much Deidara disliked Kisame, he agreed to go out and restock his kitchen and buy food for them to make lunch and dinner. Itachi went back to lounging in Kisame's armchair, playing with Sasuke's phone, where he got the text from Naruto. Luckily, the fact there was nothing on the FBI's website had convinced Sasuke they weren't seen. Itachi didn't know how he'd tell Sasuke that he knew they were in the clear. He fished through the photos on Sasuke's phone to get a small glimpse into his brother's life. There weren't a lot, and some of them were downright strange. Itachi rolled his eyes at a picture of almond duck, and another of ravioli drowning in tomato sauce. Apparently his brother regularly food-blogged. He always knew there was something wrong with that kid. Next picture was of a man who was too young to have that shock of white hair with mixed-matched colored eyes, but there was something vaguely familiar about him. The man had an amused smile on his face and a fond look in his eyes. He was very attractive, especially with that beauty mark on his jaw. The scar running down his left eye didn't detract from his good looks either. That was followed by a picture of a man Itachi knew to be a Hyuga, asleep in the passenger seat of a car with his mouth hanging open. Then there were pictures of Naruto, the first one being of Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke looked a little disgruntled to be photographed, but he had a smile in his eyes. Naruto was happy and was clearly holding the phone to take the picture. Seeing the picture, Itachi connected the name to the young blonde hanging out with his little brother all the time. Then there was a picture of Sasuke asleep, looking like the adorable teenager Itachi remembered. Back when they were happy. Sasuke was bare-chested under the blanket. The next was of Naruto, once again taking a picture of himself, shirtless in the same morning light as the previous photo, and the same colored walls in the background. He wasn't just shirtless. He had his other hand behind his head in a sexy pose. Dobe must be a pet name, Itachi thought, wondering if Naruto knew what it meant. It made Itachi sad that Naruto was with Sasuke. Itachi hadn't given Naruto the first glance, let alone a second. Naruto was a child back then, but he had certainly grown since. He doubted the picture did Naruto justice, though, but it sure was hot to look at. He scrolled back around to the beginning, searching out the picture of the two of them together for another look. He lost himself in the ecstatic happiness in Naruto's face, and the quiet happiness in Sasuke. The background was too dark to deduce the location. Where were they? Was it a special event that prompted Naruto to steal Sasuke's phone and force a selfie on him? How long ago was this? He was so engrossed he didn't notice Sasuke come in. "What are you doing with my phone?" Itachi smiled evilly. "Looking at pictures of your boyfriend." "Huh?" Itachi didn't miss the sadness in Sasuke's eyes. Itachi raised the phone, displaying the picture of the two of them. Sasuke snorted. "He's not my boyfriend." Itachi flipped through the next two photos. "Okay, yeah, we sleep together, but he's not my boyfriend." "So, who is your boyfriend?" "What makes you think I have one?" "That look you just had. You missed someone." "Yeah, but it's not Naruto. His name is Kakashi." "Kakashi?" Itachi was surprised, since Naruto had mentioned Kakashi before. "You know of him?" "I heard his name, but I'm not sure who he is." "He's a colleague of yours?" "Yeah, he was the one who trained us in personal combat. Some of us call him Kakashi-sensei." Sasuke became wistful and smiled. "I really love him." "You love him, but you're sleeping with someone else." "I didn't set out to sleep around, and I really do love Kakashi. We're more like... God, this sounds sappy. But we're more like soulmates." "Soulmates?" "I said it sounded sappy," Sasuke defended. "Okay," Itachi replied. "Go on." "Kakashi and I, we just feel so good together. I don't mean sex either, though that's excellent too. We're happy just sitting together in silence. We have so much in common and we just click. There's a connection there I've never felt before. You know, I've known Naruto since we were kids." Itachi nodded. "We were each other's firsts, and I don't regret that. And until Kakashi, he was my only one. I like him, but I don't love him the way I love Kakashi. He's like..." "You probably don't want to hear this much detail." "Oh, I'm riveted," Itachi answered. "Please continue." Kakashi and I are only one way, and Naruto and I are only one way. I guess you could say like being able to bottom and top. And it's kind of a thrill to keep two lovers from knowing about the other. Who do you bottom for? Itachi asked, curious on one level but angry on another. Well, actually, see, I'm sort of I feel like the girl of the relationship with Kakashi, and I'm really wanting for him to ask me to marry him. They legalized it 2 years ago, and I was working this case recently, which I solved, and the guy had just married his transvestite boyfriend. While I was investigating them, I really felt jealous over the relationship they had together. I want to marry Kakashi, or at least have him move in. Honestly, I never thought I would be able to love someone. I appreciate Naruto's friendship, and I enjoy our time together. But I knew from the beginning that I didn't love him. As soon as Kakashi and I got close, I felt something for him. I wasn't even sure what that feeling was. Even though it took me a few days to realize it was love, I knew I couldn't live without Kakashi after that first night with him. I will break it off with Naruto soon. You think that's soon enough? Yeah, Sasuke said. And why didn't you end it when you got yourself involved with Kakashi? I don't know. You don't know? That's what I said! Sasuke took the defensive. Would it not have made sense to go to Naruto and tell him you've met someone else? I said he wasn't my boyfriend! Does Naruto know that? Itachi demanded. You are an Uchiha and were raised better than that. What does it matter to you? You weren't there! You have no idea what I've been through since you left! That stung. If he hadn't been framed, he would have been there. Would have been beside Sasuke until he hated him for smothering him. Don't blame this on me. You are the one stringing both men along. It's sluttish behavior and unbefitting for someone of our name. This is my life, and I will live it how I see fit, Sasuke snapped. Itachi calmed himself considerably, taking a deep breath. Okay. So what happens when you return? I'm not finished, Sasuke. You return, and you have both lovers overjoyed with your return. Maybe one of them forgets themselves? Say, Naruto grabs you and kisses you. Kakashi's watching in the background. What do you do? That won't happen. Naruto knows better. But he does it anyway. Then I call him Dobe and push him away. But Kakashi's seen everything. Then I will talk to him later and tell him it was nothing. He knows Naruto. He would know it was just Naruto being Naruto. But it wasn't nothing. Naruto loves you, and your disappearance put everything into perspective. Now he wants to come out and reveal your relationship. I dare say it's been a long time coming. It won't happen! Sasuke was indignant, but there was a bit of panic on his face and in his voice. What if he blurts it out that he wants to marry you? Itachi questioned, ignoring the ache in his heart. He was really starting to like Naruto. The pain Naruto was going through, and would go through, was hurting Itachi. So was the fact Naruto was in love with someone. In love with his little brother. Sasuke stalled and shook his head. Naruto wouldn't do that, he asserted. He wouldn't. The Dobe knows better than that. Why do you call him Dobe? That's none of your business. Does he even know what that means? Sasuke snorted. Of course he does. Yeah, and it's not like he doesn't have his own comeback. Really? Itachi drawled. And what does he call you? That's none of your damn business. Nothing is my business. You are my baby brother. You've been gone for years. You don't get to show up in my life and tell me how to live it. Sasuke stormed off, completely forgetting Itachi was still in the possession of his phone. Itachi looked down at the picture of Sasuke and Naruto, and for once he felt ashamed of his brother. How could his brother take interest in another man when he already had one waiting and willing? He was raised better than that. Uchiha were always true to their lovers. Itachi nearly choked on his own words. He knew already that he wanted Naruto when he clearly had Deidara. That may be so, he argued with himself, but I haven't done anything yet. I'm still true. Without thinking, he pressed the speed dial and brought the phone to his ear. He was startled when Naruto answered.
Itachi!
Naruto was whispering. Who else would it be?
I thought maybe it was Sasuke this time, telling me he's fine.
Itachi felt a pang in his heart. Sasuke is fine, trust me.
I wouldn't be talking to you if I didn't trust you.
Naruto's voice was more echoey now, apparently ducking into the bathroom for some privacy. You don't know how much that means to me.
I try.
Naruto laughed. Itachi laughed too, amazed that someone could have such an infectious laugh. Can I ask you something, Naruto? The laughter quieted down. Why does my brother call you Dobe? Itachi couldn't stop himself asking, again, hoping that he would get an answer this time.
Oh, that.
He laughed again.
We didn't really get along in the beginning. Bitter rivals and the like.
Why didn't you get along?
The short answer? I was jealous. Sasuke had the perfect looks, perfect grades, and was instantly popular. He was everything I wasn't.
And you let him call you Dobe. Why? Do you even know what that means? Itachi heard the tenderness even over the phone.
Yes, and I know it's not a term of endearment, but when Sasuke says it, there's just something different about it. It's not like I don't have a comeback of my own.
Oh, and what do you call him, if I may ask?
He's my deme.
Naruto replied with equal tenderness. Deme? You speak Japanese?
No, but my grandmother was from Japan. I don't know much about the Japanese culture, and what I do know comes from watching Sasuke.
Well, to look at you, one wouldn't know. Naruto paused.
How do you know what I look like?
You don't remember me from back then? I saw you around occasionally. That and the pictures on Sasuke's phone.
You saw those?
Naruto sounded dismayed. You like to take pictures of yourself? Itachi chuckled.
Those were meant for Sasuke only.
But I saw them anyway.
Look, you...
Why are you with him? Itachi interrupted.
Huh?
Sasuke, why are you with him? Are you his boyfriend?
Don't let Sasuke hear you say that.
Naruto laughed, but Itachi noted a hint of strain in his voice. But you want to be with him that way?
I don't know.
Naruto sighed.
Maybe. It would be nice to have a title for what we are. Although ours doesn't feel right, but we're more than fuck buddies. Friends with benefits, maybe?
I think my brother is a fool, Itachi whispered, but Naruto heard him clearly.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Itachi.
Naruto replied bitterly. Itachi sighed. You misunderstand me. I meant that he is foolish for not claiming you.
Oh.
Naruto returned sheepishly.
Sorry, I thought you had a problem with me.
No, Naruto. You've been a great help. Itachi, who are you talking to? Deidara asked, walking in the room with his arms full of bags.
Oh, Itachi, is it?
Naruto teased. Itachi shivered at the nickname and the way it rolled off Naruto's tongue. There was no hesitancy in the way he spoke, like he'd been calling him that all his life. It was familiar. I'll have to call you back.
Sure, Itachi.
Naruto laughed. Itachi sighed and ended the call. Is there something I should know about? Deidara questioned, thinking it was Yahiko again. Not yet, but most likely we will need to talk. I'm still true, he told himself. I'm still true. Sasuke was pissed, his body shaking and barely holding back frustrated tears. Itachi had no right to lecture him. The gall of him, he thought. He'd reached Kisame's spare room and barely restrained himself from slamming the door. He wasn't a child. It's none of his damn business what I do and with whom, Sasuke sneered. He doesn't understand. Sasuke sat on the bed, his head in his hands. He let off a string of curses as he bumped the goose egg on his head. He took several deep breaths, finding a bit of calm in his sea of emotions. He doesn't understand, he repeated, but Sasuke was forced to admit to himself that his brother was right. He was being unfair to both of his lovers. He closed his eyes, frowning as he thought of Naruto. He felt a peculiar pang in his chest as he recalled Dobe's smile, the way he had looked the last time they were together. They had been to lunch. A weekly occurrence. Naruto was his usual bubbly self and Sasuke had detested it. He'd have preferred Naruto to be in a shitty mood, had even hoped his own dourness would have rubbed off on the Dobe. It was like the fates were against them, or just a particular Dobe with a penchant for turning attitudes around. Sasuke did not want this attitude turned around. He wanted to get this over with, but with each passing moment Sasuke was finding it all the more difficult to follow through. Sasuke had decided it was time to break it off with Naruto. He knew where his heart truly lay. Had known it for some time. Yet every time he brought himself to the point of telling Naruto, he couldn't do it. It had perplexed him after the first attempt, slightly annoyed him after the second, but by the third attempt Sasuke knew he had a problem. It never seemed like the right moment for some reason or other, and Sasuke wasn't as big an ass as to give Naruto the boot after sex, which always accompanied these lunches and dinners. Sasuke knew they'd go to his place afterwards and shag. He didn't want to get comfortable being in Naruto's home. He'd had that sudden, jarring feeling of familiarity after only the third night spent there. It scared him how comfortable he'd gotten so fast and had outright demanded they go to his place exclusively. Naruto had taken the demand in stride. If he had been hurt by Sasuke's demand, he'd never shown it. Naruto was known to wear his heart on his sleeve. Sasuke had loathed himself since that demand, because he could be comfortable in his own home, without feeling like he was laying down roots in Naruto's. He also loathed himself for enjoying sex with Naruto so much, the loathing only intensifying as his relationship progressed with Kakashi and his inability to let Naruto go. He had tried to pull back during sex, hoping Naruto would get the hint and do the breaking up instead. But it seemed Naruto didn't get the hint. Or maybe he did, because recently Naruto had been more withdrawn after sex. Naruto was a cuddler, something Sasuke tolerated because Naruto wasn't otherwise clingy. He liked to curl into the side of Sasuke's body like he needed the warmth, only it was more likely the physical contact Naruto craved, as Naruto's body heat tended to run hotter than normal, and Sasuke's body, in contrast, tended to run cooler. A comfortable warmth could be reached between them. Sasuke called for the check, bracing himself to tell Naruto.
What do you think, Sasuke?
Naruto said. Sasuke blinked. About? Naruto rolled his eyes, chuckling.
And you see I don't pay attention. Your caseload can wait an hour while you eat. It's not going anywhere. I said there's a seminar coming up in a few months. It's gonna be in Suna again this year, and I thought you'd like to join me this time. I know you like Suna, and there's a gun expo taking place at the same hotel. I know you're into weapons.
Sasuke's brows raised. He was intrigued by the gun expo, for sure. He not only liked weapons, he appreciated their craftsmanship. Of course, if he decided to go, then he couldn't end things with Naruto. I'll think about it. When is it?
March. It would be a sanctioned time off since it'd be considered work-related.
That would be the seminar and not the gun expo, Dobe.
Well, yeah,
Naruto said, scratching his nose.
I can get a discount on the room and seminar tickets if I book for 2. No one would have to know you didn't stay for the seminar. All you have to do is sign in and get your gift back.
Sasuke let out a small laugh. So you're just using me for the second gift back? Naruto looked genuinely surprised.
No, I didn't even think about that.
Sasuke said, amused. It's tempting. Naruto deflated slightly.
Is that a no?
Naruto looked so stricken, Sasuke found himself saying in spite of himself. It's a solid maybe.
You definitely have the vacation time racked up otherwise. You barely take time off, and I think this could be good for you. You don't even have to do the gun expo. You could just sightsee and work on your non-existent tan. Anyway, I hope he'll say yes and join me.
Sasuke steeled himself, deciding now was the time. He hadn't committed to going to Suna, and Naruto's mood was considerably dampened, the perfect condition Sasuke had been hoping for. He opened his mouth and felt his heart race. Sweat gathered in his palms as a warmth and fluttering sensation seized his midsection. He wiped his palms against his pant legs and took a sip of water. Naruto, he said.
Yeah?
Naruto answered. He was looking straight at Naruto, watching the other avert his eyes. Naruto's back straightened, almost like he was bracing for impact. Or rejection. Maybe he knew he was about to be dumped. Or maybe he thought Sasuke was about to tell him no to Suna. It didn't matter the reason now. Sasuke couldn't do it. He had lost his nerve. Let's get out of here, he said instead. Sasuke took the check and paid, his turn to do so, and led Naruto out of the restaurant. Sasuke pushed his key into the lock of his front door and keyed in his alarm code. Naruto followed, closing the door behind him and kicking off his shoes, donning the house slippers Sasuke preferred he use. Sasuke mimicked him. They were going to head straight for the bedroom, yet Sasuke insisted they use the slippers through the main house. The thought of socks or bare feet on the living room carpet or tiled kitchen made him shudder. It was more than his Japanese heritage and the tradition of not allowing shoes in the home. He didn't want the filth of the outside world in his home, nor did he want people's filth in his home either. But he didn't insist with Kakashi. He frowned. He closed the bedroom door behind Naruto and began to work at removing his clothing, watching Naruto do the same. Sasuke wondered again why he couldn't bring himself to stop this. What it was about either of them that kept him coming back to the dobe. He knew his life would get easier if he ended it, but again he felt the rising panic in his chest as he really contemplated it. It didn't make sense why he couldn't. Naruto was standing naked at the end of his bed when Sasuke stepped out of his pants. He stopped before Naruto, leaning his head into his neck. Naruto's arms enveloped Sasuke, his breath hitching as Sasuke inhaled. He never admitted out loud, but Sasuke loved the combination of Naruto's soap and body spray. It was an interesting mix that didn't assault the noses of anyone unfortunate enough to smell it. Naruto's laugh was a little breathy and Sasuke smirked. He could now add the neck, just below the ear, as one of Naruto's sensitive spots. There at the crease where thigh and hip joined, right next to the groin. Naruto fell back, his legs widening to allow Sasuke's body to feel warm and comfortable between them. He studied Naruto, had taken to observing Naruto's reactions to him, wondering if he looked as silly when he bottomed for Kakashi. Kakashi. Sasuke knew he shouldn't be thinking of his other lover with Naruto hot and ready on his bed. Naruto didn't seem to shy away from his staring. He seemed almost comfortable being watched. If Sasuke was fond to take selfies or record himself, he'd probably be foolish enough to tape them together. Sasuke pushed Naruto's thighs further apart and with his fingertips coasted over that sensitive spot. Naruto gasped and shuddered. Bastard! He laughed. Call me what you like, I know you love it, Naruto. And this, he palmed Naruto's cock, dragging at the thickening length, would agree with me. Naruto moaned his response, his glare tinged with lust. Lowering himself against Naruto, he ground their cocks together, marveling at the dry friction. Naruto wrapped his legs around Sasuke, drawing him tighter against his body. Not clingy, but certainly someone who craved human contact, Sasuke mused. Sasuke, Naruto said. He threw his head back and thrust up, throwing Sasuke off his rhythm. Sasuke hissed, finding his tempo again, forcing Naruto to find and match that pace, fast and hard. It was the way Sasuke liked it between them, less foreplay, less time to think, and most importantly, less time for the light blue eyes to see into his soul. He hated how Naruto could see through him at times. Why can't he see how torn I am? That I want to end this. Naruto hissed back, rugging against him, thrust for thrust. His eyes were closed, one arm draped over his eyes. Fuck! He groaned, his other hand dug into the bedsheets, twisting and bunching the fabric. With both arms, Naruto pulled Sasuke in for a kiss, nipping at his lower lip. Sasuke grunted in response, abhorring kissing Naruto during sex, but he let it slide. Misguided penance for the guilt he felt in keeping Naruto in the dark, shame for being too weak to let him go. With a final thrust, Naruto was off, cum clinging to both of their abdomens and chests. Sasuke thrust a few more times, following Naruto in his release. His arms gave out and he collapsed on Naruto, whose breathing was already evening out. He was shocked. They had just frauded each other to completion. He was relieved, though. He needed to end the intimacy between them, and penetration was as intimate as it gets. Naruto's arm came up to wrap around Sasuke but stopped and hovered for a moment before dropping to the mattress. Sasuke scowled at the odd tug in his stomach and rolled onto his back. He couldn't help wondering if Naruto would curl into him or lie beside him until he dozed. He couldn't decide which outcome he wanted. Maintain the status quo by curling into his side, or starting the grueling process of separation by lying there. Naruto had to know. That Sasuke's unspoken question was answered when Naruto curled into his side. And Sasuke let him, because if he was being honest, he liked the warmth Naruto radiated into his cold bones. It also made Sasuke feel worse, like he took more from Naruto than he could ever give back. He knew he did. And he also knew Naruto willingly gave more of himself than he expected to receive. Sasuke opened his eyes to the toneless walls of his borrowed bedroom. He still didn't understand why he was stringing both men along, but he realized that Naruto and Kakashi deserved better than what he was offering them. He needed to end things with Naruto and plead forgiveness from Kakashi. Even if Kakashi never found out about his relationship with Naruto, he needed to do or say something to make it up to him, to assuage his own conscience. When he got back, he would end it. Maybe his being gone would piss Naruto off, or Sasuke could say it had to do with the experience, or finding his brother or something. Maybe he could start being more public with Kakashi so Naruto would get the idea. He wasn't missing Naruto, but he was aching for Kakashi. Just his presence, his scent, the way he caressed his hair, the way he held him in bed like a teddy bear. The thought made Sasuke smile softly. As much as Naruto might love him, he didn't cherish him the way Kakashi did. Then again, Sasuke was never very warm with Naruto, but he was with Kakashi. Get what you give. Sasuke scrubbed the uninjured side of his head. He really thought that losing his entire family had scarred him so badly he'd never be able to love anyone again. He believed that even as he slept with Naruto. Not until Kakashi did he discover his emotions weren't as scarred over as he thought. But he feared he would lose the protection those scars offered him. Loving Kakashi left him open to be hurt again. His first day back, he would break up with Naruto and ask Kakashi to move in with him. He would make it impossible to continue with Naruto. There was also the idea that Itachi was disappointed in him. Who else was left to disappoint or to be proud of him? He wanted his brother's approval, but Sasuke resented his meddling. Sasuke knew he was wrong to let things go this long, but the bastard had no idea how hard it was to break Naruto's heart. They waited for Kisame to come home and have dinner with their benefactor. "As chance, Tachi," Kisame said as they finished eating. "No, Kisame, not ever again." Deidara was stewing. "Lighten up, Deidara," Kisame said. "I know it's over between us. Itachi made that perfectly clear years ago." "I'm glad you didn't hold that against me when the shit hit the fan," Itachi said. Kisame put a hand on Itachi's neck and rubbed it affectionately. "I still care for you, Itachi. I deserve that broken wrist and cracked ribs. I wouldn't hold that against you." Sasuke's eyebrow raised in shock and question. "Don't ask, Ototo." Deidara was silently fuming. Sasuke couldn't decide if Deidara knew, and that made him angry, or if he too wasn't told what happened. "Once the street's empty, we'll go back," Sasuke said. "Thanks for your help, Kisame." "A favor from an FBI agent can come handy in the future." Rather than take offense, Sasuke smirked. He actually got on better with Kisame than with Deidara. He felt they had something of a kindred spirit. Thursday, November 12th. It was nice to be back. It wasn't his home, but it was feeling like it. Living under the same roof as family was new yet familiar. He felt comfortable here. Sasuke sighed as he stripped the clothes he wore for nearly 3 days. He carefully removed the bandage from around his head. The cut was healing and there wasn't much blood on the gauze, so he slipped under a hot shower and washed his face and hair like normal. It stung, but didn't start bleeding. The master bedroom had its own bathroom, and there was a second with a shower for the other rooms, but Itachi suggested Sasuke use the master bath since the guest bath wasn't well stocked and didn't have its own heater. Sasuke used the soap he smelled on his brother's skin and the shampoo he smelled in his hair, the same conditioner. It felt a lot like it did when Sasuke first used Kakashi's shower, that sense of being close to someone, intimate in such a domestic and mundane way, the same soap and shampoo. He loved his brother and wanted to be close to him after so long. It wasn't sexual, but he sought any little intimacy. Kakashi. He missed him so much. Sasuke was forced to face a question he didn't want to answer. Who was more important to him right now? Kakashi or Itachi? He had to face it that Itachi was his family, the only blood he had left. He would choose his brother, but he'd be miserable without Kakashi. The question between Naruto and Kakashi didn't take him a moment to answer. He never loved Naruto. He never believed he could fall in love after his family died and Itachi left. He liked Naruto, but it was more dependence on his friendship than love that kept them together. Sasuke continued their relationship because it was what Naruto wanted, and Sasuke did like his company, and the sex. But Sasuke didn't understand love until he met Kakashi. But he would leave them both for his brother, even if his brother could be a dick sometimes. He dried his head carefully and checked the cut in the mirror. It was still only one step away from an open wound, but it was healing. He smeared ointment on it and covered it with a clean bandage, wrapping it round his head. Sasuke threw on a battered t-shirt and a comfortable pair of sleep pants and exited the master bedroom. Itachi was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping at a steaming cup of tea, while Deidara was dancing horribly nearby. Music was drifting softly from an old CD player, a song that Sasuke recognized from days spent with Naruto. Naruto was more into pop songs and loved to sing them out loud. Sasuke preferred the alternative and never sang when there were people around to hear him. Naruto convinced him to go to karaoke with him more than once, but he was never successful in dragging Sasuke to the microphone. Uchiha avoided making fools of themselves. Sasuke shook his head and grabbed a cup from the cupboard, opting for water instead of tea. He sat across from Itachi and sighed. Itachi caught his gaze and smiled. An overwhelming feeling of lava swept over him, closing his throat. "All down in the bathroom, baby Uchiha?" Deidara said. Sasuke rolled his eyes. "Obviously, I wouldn't be sitting here if I wasn't." "Good," Deidara said. "I'm heading for the shower next. Wanna join me, Itachi?" Itachi blushed but shook his head. "Not tonight." "You're lost then," Deidara said, swiveling his hips suggestively as he exited the room. Sasuke frowned into his cup. "Why him?" he asked. "Hmm?" Itachi asked, turning his full attention to Sasuke. "What was that?" Sasuke shrugged his shoulders. "I don't get it. The two of you. Why Deidara?" Itachi was taken aback. "I love him," he answered. "Sure, even an idiot can see that you love him, but I mean, if we're talking boyfriend material, Kisame is the better choice. What happened there?" "We're not discussing this, Sasuke," Itachi said. "Come off it, Itachi. Even you must admit that Kisame is a vast improvement over that baka. Can you fault me for wondering why you dumped a man like Kisame for him?" Sasuke nodded towards the master bedroom. "First of all," Itachi said, his voice low and tight, "I did not dump Kisame for Deidara. Deidara was years later. Second of all, if we are talking boyfriend material, Dei takes that award. Kisame is not who he seems to be. I'd expect an FBI agent to see that." Sasuke frowned, ignoring the little jab about the bureau. "He seems like a decent guy to me." "Who believes I'm guilty, Sasuke?" "I believed you were guilty," Sasuke countered. He was still a bit emotionally sensitive after thinking about his complicated love life. Is the assumption of innocence a make-or-break deal? Itachi sighed heavily. "That's what draws Kisame to me. His belief that I'm a cold-blooded killer. He loves the idea of that more than he loves me." "But he does love you." "Yes, Kisame loves me, and for all the wrong reasons." Sasuke swallowed hard. "So, if I didn't believe you were innocent, you'd dump me too? Is that how it is?" "You are different, Sasuke. You are family." That made Sasuke think of his earlier conclusion that he would choose Itachi over Kakashi. It just made Sasuke angrier. Kisame was not and will never be family. Trust me, Ototo. You haven't seen the real Kisame, but you have seen the real Deidara. Sasuke shook his head, one step away from rolling his eyes. "Is that why you broke his ribs? Because he thinks you're guilty?" "Drop it, Sasuke. I will not discuss this with you." Itachi rose and set his cup in the sink, filling it with water. "What a hypocrite." "Excuse me?" Itachi said, rounding on Sasuke. Sasuke turned in his chair. "You heard me. You're a hypocrite. It's okay for you to know about my personal life and criticize it, but when it comes to you, everything has to be a damn secret. I've been a very open kimono with you about my relationship." "Have you ever once considered this may be a painful subject for me, Sasuke? Or is it only your selfish need to know everything that drives you to pry? Now, leave it be." Sasuke scoffed. "Have you forgotten? I'm a detective. It's what we do. Pry. How can you be so self-righteous? You pass judgment on me and my personal life. I am not the one stringing two men along because I'm greedy or whatever it is that you tell yourself to make you feel better about fucking two men behind their backs." "You're a prick," Sasuke said, the tips of his ears reddening with anger. "And I told you to leave it alone!" Itachi snapped. "Yeah, you're just like father! An asshole to the core!" Sasuke rocketed out of his chair, Itachi reaching out his hand to stop it from hitting the tiled floor. He heard the sound of Sasuke's door closing. Not the slamming he had expected, and somehow the quiet snap seemed all the worse. Itachi rubbed at his eyes, could feel the telltale pinprick of tears. With a sniffle, he grabbed Sasuke's abandoned glass and placed it in the sink. He went around the house turning off lights, and settled on his bed minutes later. Deidara was still in the bath, taking his time, probably playing with his clay models as his skin pruned. Itachi let out an exaggerated sigh as he lay there in the darkness. He just got his brother back. He couldn't let something silly like this break them apart, not even a little. He looked over at the digital clock, nearly 6 in the morning. They had all napped before leaving Kisame's, but they were all in need of real sleep despite the hour. "Hey," Deidara said softly, shutting off the bathroom light and crawling into bed. He plastered himself to Itachi's side, throwing a long bony leg over Itachi's legs. Itachi laughed and leaned in for a kiss from Deidara, soft and sweet. "Will you hold me?" Itachi asked. "You two had a fight, didn't you?" Itachi sighed. "And how would you know that?" "ESP, psychic powers and all that voodoo." "Really?" Itachi asked, sounding every bit the skeptic. "Hell no! I can hear your raised voices." Itachi frowned. "Don't worry, I won't pry. Besides, I couldn't hear what was being said." "I love you, Day." "Of course you do," Day said. "And I love you too. Now, come here." Itachi laughed. "Like I could move any closer than I already am." Deidara smiled and leaned into Itachi's ear, whispering, "I know another way we could be closer." "Oh," Itachi said. He spared a nervous glance at his bedroom door. "You know we can be quiet when we need to be, Itachi." Deidara pivoted himself up with fluid ease, sitting on Itachi's lap. He gave an experimental thrust, pushing against Itachi's burgeoning cock. "That feels good," Itachi whispered, grunting hard when Deidara repeated the motion. "Yeah, it always does," Day said, rocking against Itachi. Itachi thrust up, his timing off. He and Deidara laughed, trying to find their rhythm. And suddenly they were in sync, pushing and pulling, the tug of skin, the feel of rough fabric against ass cheeks. Deidara stalled, leaning over to the nightstand and pulled out a well-used bottle. He coated his fingers and tugged at his own cock for a bit. Leaning back, he thrust 2 fingers inside himself, moaning sweetly. Itachi levered himself up and lavished Deidara's chest with kisses before latching onto a dusty nipple, tugging and teasing it to a pert peak. Satisfied, he gave the other one the star treatment, smiling when Deidara thrust in a second finger. "Damn, Tachi! Your fucking mouth feels so good." He withdrew his fingers, reluctantly detached himself from Itachi's mouth and pulled Itachi's pants down. Itachi moaned as the waistband of his boxers and pants slid over his genitals. And then Deidara was lowering himself on top of Itachi, engulfing his cock in a tight heat. "Yeah, like that," Itachi encouraged, gripping Deidara's hips. They moved in tandem, trying and succeeding in finding their earlier rhythm. Itachi's head fell back as he let out a soft moan, Deidara smiling as Itachi's hand explored his body. Deidara loved Itachi's hands on his body. Always a treat when Deidara rode him. All too soon Itachi could feel the telltale sign, the tingling in his balls, the rapid pulse in his cock. He gripped Deidara's cock tightly, jerking him off. It didn't take long before Deidara was coming over Itachi's fist and chest. Deidara sighed, still rocking against Itachi. Sweat dripped from his temple. Itachi tracing the routes to Deidara's ear. And then he was coming too. Liquid fire coating Deidara's insides. "Fuck," Deidara whispered. "I think that's what we just did," Itachi mused, laughing with Deidara. Day hummed. He jumped off the bed and returned with a damp washcloth. He took extra care in cleaning Itachi up before taking care of himself. Then he slid into bed and plastered himself to Itachi's side, holding him tightly as they drifted off to sleep. End of chapter 5. Stay tuned.